Good morning, good people. Today is Sunday, January the 4th, 2026. And I want to talk to you guys some this morning about what occurred yesterday or the night before or however. But we all, if you're keeping up with the news, are aware of the fact that the president and his wife of Venezuela were both captured and now have been brought back to the United States in order to face uh, criminal charges, drug charges, and who knows whatever else types of charges that they're going to face when they go to court. And my thing is that if they are truly and have truly become wealthy off of moving drugs from country to country and also putting people's lives at risk, and we know and have heard how a lot of these drug cartels work, then it may be a good thing that this has happened. But I've been saying, and I'm going to continue to say this, is that Trump is not doing what he has done in order to stop the drugs from coming into the United States. That's not his true intention. His intentions, in which we see them unfolding right before our eyes, is to expand the United States footprint, to expand the United States' territories, meaning that in which we see now, because at one point he was supporting someone to take over the Venezuelan president's position. But now all of a sudden he supports no one, and he states, and he's going to do this, that the United States is going to govern Venezuela until they can find a good successor to take over that position in Venezuela. And we have to look at the full picture, y'all. This isn't about, once again, him ever finding anyone to take over that position. And if he does find someone that he claims is has all the qualifications to run that country, you best believe that person is more than likely going to be from the United States and a strong supporter of Trump's agenda, and or whoever it is that may be from Venezuela. Same difference, that they're basically going to be a puppet for what Donald Trump wants to be said and done in Venezuela. So we have to be prepared for this. And like I say, the drugs aren't a good thing. Drugs have not ever been a good thing. But at the same time, Trump has been president, at this point in time twice. He was president 8 years ago, or however many years ago. And this drug trafficking thing has been full blast for we don't know how many years. Drugs have been coming from Venezuela and other countries for decades. This isn't something that just happened in his second term. So where was this energy the first time? If you see what I'm saying. But because this is his second term and it should be his last term, and he knows this, and we all know that he wants to be a king or a dictator in this country, to the extent to where he's trying to figure out ways in order to do so. So if he goes in and start taking over other countries, putting the United States military there and also people that he wants to have in place that's going to do what he wants them to do, then that gives him more power. And a lot of times, the more power you have, the easier it is for you to have things that you want to have done. Meaning that he could possibly figure out a way to take over, because we already know in the first term when he lost, how these people completely lost their minds, went to the Capitol, stormed the Capitol, threatened the people that were in the Capitol, including the vice president that this guy had, and he truly did nothing about it. And then he turns around when he gets voted in his second term and he pardons majority of them, if not all of them, saying that these were good people. And anyone in their right mind, somebody can sound like a good person, but when a person presents themselves and you see their actions, the actions are what normally truly proves what type of person someone is. And those, excuse me, and those people were far from being good people. Good people don't go into somewhere and threaten the lives of other people behind politics, y'all, of all things. This wasn't something where these people in the White House broke into their houses and hurt someone in their family. No, these politicians don't even know these people personally. But yet their lives were literally on the line over politics. And you say, Donald Trump, that these people are good people? It proves that Donald Trump is not a good person because he doesn't know the difference between a good and a bad person. But like I said, we have to be prepared for what's to come because of Donald Trump's actions. And then he turns around and he always uses money as a means of trying to keep the American people calm. And when I say that, you're going to get a so many $1,000 stimulus check. The people of America are going to save $11,000 to $20,000 on their taxes in 2026 because of this bill that they created. But they're trying to, but like I say, he uses money as a means to dangle that carrot in front of people, making them think a certain way in order to blind them from what truly matters. And don't get me wrong, yeah, we need money to survive, but money means nothing if you have missiles and God knows whatever else shooting over your head and blowing up your house and all this other stuff. Money means nothing at that point. You could be a billionaire and it means nothing if someone is shooting nuclear missiles and shooting up your neighborhood. It means nothing, y'all. And I say that because what we have to understand is that he also mentioned that the United States is now going to take over the Venezuelan oil supply. Just take it over. Going in there bullying people. But yet he's the same person that said that the war between Russia and Ukraine was a bad thing. He's the same person that said the war between Israel and the Hamas group is a bad thing, in which they are. But he's the same one that's now creating conflict on this side of the world. Let's make it make sense, y'all. Yeah, Venezuela is not the biggest of countries, to the point where he knows this. He knows this about a lot of the countries that's on this side of the world, that their military does not add up to what the United States military has. And so he's using bully tactics and making up these excuses that aren't completely valid in order to go into these countries and take over these countries and put the United States governing bodies, people that he wants, into these countries to run these countries, y'all. And that's a direct sign of someone trying to be a king and or a dictator. Going in with brute force and taking over these countries, y'all. And so, like I was saying, he has now stated that by taking over the Venezuelan oil supply, that should be a means of Venezuela paying back the United States for these airstrikes on these boats and things that the United States has recently done. In which the Venezuelans didn't say, hey, Donald Trump, can you make sure that you blow these boats up in the middle of the ocean for us? Can you come over here and blow something up and come take the president and his wife away from us? They didn't ask that of the United States. So with them not asking anything of the United States, they shouldn't owe the United States anything. But in Donald Trump's mind, once again, in his mind, he feels that Venezuela owes the United States. But once again, he's using that as an excuse, y'all. That's an excuse, because we have to understand that don't get me wrong, there's a lot of natural resources out there, but oil is, if not the most important resource when it comes down trying to run a country, meaning that oil, supplies fuel, and without fuel, think about the United States. Without fuel, we would be dead in the water. And so he's doing that to basically handicap these other countries that depend on the Venezuelan oil supply, in which I would say the largest country, or the most important country in this whole scheme of things that depend on that oil, is Iran. Iran is one of those countries. And we all know the story with Iran. Trump sent the strikes over there earlier this year to so-called blow up their nuclear facilities. He uses the word obliterate, to where we know that it wasn't completely obliterated, because they are now rebuilding their nuclear facilities over there. And we also know that Iran and Israel have not been on good terms for a long time as well, because Iran was that country that stepped in order to try and help Hamas overtake Israel or do whatever they're trying to do over there. So that's the main reason. It has nothing, once again, to do with drugs at all. It's the oil in Iran. So that's the reason why Donald Trump chose Venezuela, of all countries, to go in and do what he has done, because we all know that drugs are coming from a lot of different places. But if you go in, you take over Venezuela, you remove the leadership in Venezuela, you take that oil supply away from Iran. So now Iran does not have that fuel supply to be able to run so-called as efficiently as they were or have been. That's the real reason. But I say all this, and I was talking about the bombs and stuff, because what we have to understand is that the leader of Iran recently, about a week or two ago, made a statement and said that Iran is claiming that they are at war with the United States. They said it outright. It's not a potential war. It's not a maybe. Iran has declared war against the United States. And yeah, Iran is not, once again, the biggest of countries. But in 2024 as well, Iran and China signed a deal that included trade and support and all this kind of stuff from one another. And one of those support systems was for the military and AI and stuff like that. So now we have to realize that Iran and China, because China ain't talking to the United States about helping each other military-wise, because we have always been in competition with China. The United States always wants to be the biggest and the baddest. And that's the same way that China is. But China is actually helping Iran, and Iran is giving China tips, things that China may not know when it comes down, once again, to the military weapons and also the AI. So if China is helping out Iran military-wise, we have to be aware of the possibility that if we truly end up in a full war with Iran, that China could possibly step in as well. In which a lot of people say, well, let them do it. I don't agree with it. I don't want China stepping in and going to war with the United States, because we have to understand that the United States isn't on good terms with a lot of the European countries because of the loud mouth that's in the White House, because of his pride, because he thinks that whatever he says is what it should be and not wanting to listen to what anyone else has to say. So we're not on good terms with Europe. I mean, he even said it himself, that if Europe went to war with someone, I can't remember exactly who it was, that the Europeans were on their own. So for him to say that out of his mouth, the only way I see the Europeans stepping in to help is if the European countries end up being at risk because of a war that could possibly happen between the United States and Iran and China. But if they don't have any issues, then I don't see them coming in to try and help the United States, because all the United States has done since Donald Trump has gotten into office is destroyed relationships. Destroyed relationships with our closest ally, which is Canada. Come on, y'all. He wants to take over Canada. And once again, it has nothing, and the excuse that he used to try and take over Canada was because how good it looked on a map. Let's use common sense, my people. Because it looks good on a map, then Canada should be a part of the United States for that one reason? How stupid can we be to listen to such ignorance and believe the ignorance that comes from the White House? But we know that Canada's not standing for that. And I only way that Canada will get involved, because they are the bordering country to the United States, that there's a possibility that they could have some effects of a war if the war was to be able to make it across into this country. The only way they would step in. They're not doing it because they really want to help the United States. They're doing it to protect themselves. And I know this is all what ifs and maybes, but these what ifs and maybes are extremely strong possibilities because of, once again, the stubborn guy that's in the White House. And we once again have to be prepared and on the lookout. And another thing is that Russia is not going to step in at all. Russia's not going to step in at all if China and the United States are going to go head to head. Because what we have to understand once again is that Russia and China are a lot closer when it comes down to any type of relationship than what the United States and Russia is. And we also have to understand that Russia and China are a lot closer neighbors. We on the other side. You see what I'm saying? And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if it was to go down that Russia stepped in and tried to help China. Just for the reason being is that the United States has tried to, and don't get me wrong, has been the cream of the crop for many years. But as far as I can remember, and I ain't kept up with politics all my life, but I've not ever seen a president that boasted and bragged about it as much as Donald Trump has. And we all have experienced that. We all know that if we had a friend or a so-called friend or someone that we knew, and all they did was boast and brag about their accomplishments and how good they are at this and how this and how that, and make you seem like you have no type of, like you haven't achieved anything, then you're going to get tired of that person. In which I'm a grown man now, but back in the days when I was younger, I would have fought a person over something like that. And many others would too. And I say that because that's what Donald Trump is as a 70-plus-year-old man, is a big child boasting about all these accomplishments. And then these other people over here, these other leaders looking at him like, this man's 70 plus years old and he sounds like he's a teenager, always boasting and bragging about stuff. And then he want to blame everybody else for the problems, and he want to boast about anything good that has happened in this country. Let's think about that, y'all. That's the sign of immaturity, but yet he's 70-something years old. And like I was saying, is that Putin, he knows how to play the game, y'all. Putin is playing the game. Putin is willing to come to the United States. Putin is willing to talk to representatives from this country because he knows how to play the game. He is just trying to get in good with the United States and get this information to do this or do that. But when it comes down to it, Russia alliance is with China. Russia's alliance is not with the United States. And the United States, if they don't understand that, I'm talking about the politicians, then something's wrong. Because China and Russia has sat down and shook hands and went to dinner, brunch, and lunch more times than Putin has ever set foot on the United States territory. And we have to understand that. We have to see the facts, y'all. We have to stop being blinded by all these false statements that are coming from Donald J. Trump and the people around him. Like that little girl in the White House, that spokeswoman. It's as if she has literally had a chip implanted into her mind. I am so serious. It's like she has been sat down in front of a television with her eyes, held open, and had to sit there and just listen to everything that has happened in Donald Trump's life, all the things that he's ever talked about, because she is like a little robot and she's quick. Somebody say something, she has a response for everything. But that's all they are, y'all. They're robots in the grand scheme of things. They have been programmed to follow after Donald J. Trump's agenda. And we have to also realize that he's doing these things in order to try and take the topic and the thought of those Epstein files out of all of the American people's minds. That's what he's doing, because once again, common sense says it all. Donald Trump was on private jets with this Epstein guy. Not one time. I can see one time it might have been a business venture or something like that. Yeah, just one time, But 2 times, 3 times, I have a minute. Now it's getting a little bit suspicious that you have been on a private jet, you and Epstein, flying back and forth. Why are y'all even hanging together if he was he was a despicable man? He was a creep. He was disgusting. Now that this man has quote unquote died, he's sitting there calling this man every derogatory word in the dictionary after he has died. But if you go back once again, you see the shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to shoulder. They talking, they whispering in each other's ear, y'all. If that's not a sign of a close relationship, because no man is going to be whispering in my ear. You hear what I'm saying? But when that happens, that goes to show you that these guys were closer than what he is alleging they were. And for them to be as close as they were and pointing out these girls, even if they were of age in a sense. But Donald J. Trump knew what was going on with Epstein. He had to have known. You hear what I'm saying? One thing I can say is that you're not going to hear me, even though I'm going to be honest with you, I hadn't talked to many of my friends and even some of my family for years. And it's not because I want it to be that way. It's just how sometimes things work in life. But one thing you is not going to ever hear me say is that, I wasn't close to them, or you ain't going to hear me bad mouthing them, calling them names, and I hadn't had a close contact with them in years. And another thing you ain't gonna have, I wouldn't be able to say is that, well, I don't know what they were up to, and I might have been hanging with them all the time, but yet I didn't know that they were doing this and that. At some point in time, what a person is doing, they're either going to tell you, or you're going to find out just because you're around that person and you're going to see what's going on. Meaning that Donald Trump had to have seen young girls walking around that island. He had to see these young girls around Epstein when they were hanging out together. It was obvious, y'all. But what is he trying to do? He's trying to come up with distractions. That's what he's trying to do. At one point, he was hoping that the United States people, the Americans, had completely forgotten about the Epstein files. That's why for an extended period of time, you didn't even hear nothing about it. He said they was going to release it, and then for a couple of months, you didn't hear nothing about those files. And why? Because he was hoping that we would forget. So he's coming up and doing other things, because, for example, that Venezuelan conflict with him blowing up boats, that happened in between the time after he said that they were going to release those files. He started blowing up boats in the ocean, thinking that that's a major distraction right there. The people ain't going to care about Epstein when we got these people being blown up in the ocean, or the people ain't going to care about Epstein when I'm deploying the National Guard into certain states in this country. They're not going to even think about Epstein. Wrong. We haven't forgotten. But then the thing is, what we have to understand is that before they released them, They went and cut out so much information, y'all, that those files have been dummied down to the smallest degree. Meaning that the people that are reading those files and the information that we're getting is nothing compared to the true files. He has taken out all of the real information. And it's not just him, but I'm speaking about him because he's the darn president of the United States. It could have been Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Elon Musk. I'm not Donald Trump, but Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Obama. It could be all of them. But my point is that they are no longer, as far as the ones that were presidents, are no longer presidents. He is. So it's about him right now. And we can talk about everybody else later on. And they could be brought to justice as well, because if any of them were involved in that and they knew what was going on, they should pay the penalty for it. And then they sit there and say, well, the Democrats, or people saying the Democrats could have released it, because they could have, but they're not releasing it either because they are in those files as well. It's all of them, y'all. It's all of them. They all played a part in what was going on with Epstein. So it's not just a Republican thing. It's not just me saying that the Republicans need to be taken down. All of them, Democrats, independents, I don't care what you go as. They all are guilty. So that's why you didn't hear Biden or anyone talking about it, because they could have brought them out. But they didn't want to bring it out because they knew that it had some condemning information when it came down to the Democratic Party. Because if that would have come out and people saw Bill Clinton sitting in the jacuzzi with him and these women and stuff like that, then that would have lessened, even though they didn't win the election, but it would have lessened their the opportunity for them to be reelected in the positions. So they knew not to release them. That's why. But all of them guilty, y'all. But I speak on Donald Trump because he knew what was going on and he's denying everything. That's the problem. And it's obvious the type of person that Donald Trump is, because even at that point in time when you saw him and the Epstein guy and some other guy, and they were sitting there and it was a video, they dancing, Trump dancing and pointing at the girls and stuff like that. Those girls, even if once again they were quote unquote of age, they were probably no older than 18. There were some of them girls were 18 years old. You could see it. It was obvious that they were young girls. And you talking about guys that are 30 and 40 years old thinking it's cool to mess with an 18-year-old, a 21-year-old. Dude, you 40, I'm 44 years old. There's no way on God's green earth that you would sit me, unless I was sexually perverted, messing with an 18-year-old or a 21-year-old girl, because that is perversion. Older men and women do it too, but they do this because of their perversion. It's not because, oh, well, I love this person. It's not. It's sexual perversion because they feel, oh, they're young and they're still this, and they look this. And so it's to please their mind. It's to please that sexual perversion that they have within themselves. So if that was the case, that's why I would do something like that. It's nothing more than that. It's a fantasy thing, y'all. And you know it's factual. Look at Donald Trump's age and look at his wife's age. It's at least a 20-year gap in between Donald Trump and his wife. Meaning that, because you remember they said something to him about Epstein. He's like, well, I guess he just likes young girls. And he didn't say it in a way that was negative. Like, man, I guess that chump messing with little girls or something, man, there's something wrong with him. No, it was, well, I guess he just likes young girls. Well, so do you, Donald Trump. So do you. All of them guys are sexual deviants. Or demons or whatever the word is. That's what they are. And that little Carolyn girl, that's why I brought her up, because she's young and she's married to an older guy. The guy, it's like a 25-year age gap between that Carolyn girl, the spokes girl, and her husband. So no wonder why Donald Trump chose her. You see what I'm saying? Because she is into the same things that he's into. That the guy that does the defense that was on Fox News or whatever channel he used to be on, he's that way. messing with little younger women, and no telling who else is like that. So you have to understand, you have to look at the people around him, and it shows you the type of person that he is. They all think the same way. So we know what was going on. He knew what was going on. And eventually it will all come out. Now, will it be enough or in time to stop him from trying to become president again? I can't say. Or will it be in time enough to stop him if he figures out a way to become president again? Because what has to be understood as well, that many of the American people that voted for him have now turned against him. This guy's approval rating is like 35%. That's an extremely low, that's an extremely low approval rating. 35%. So a lot of these people that voted for him are now upset with themselves because they chose to put him back in the office. They chose this demon to run this country because that's what he is. And we have to understand that this demon that sat here a few months ago and claimed to be the president of peace. How can you be a president of peace when you're causing so much drama? Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So we got to stop. We got to look through the lies, y'all. Look at the reality of the situation and stop listening to him. Don't listen to him and just watch him. Look at his actions. Because, and this, I'm about to finish up. My thing is that how can you truly care about a people when you're doing so much to hurt those people? You see what I'm saying? That's just like me saying that I love my family, but yet I'm going to go out and I'm going to go to my neighbor's house and I'm going to throw rocks through their windows and I'm going to shoot at their house and not hit nobody, but I'm just going to do these things to them and expect for nothing to happen. You don't love your family. You don't love yourself if you go out and do things against other people, because I could go out there and do that and then they turn around, they come and blow my house up and kill everybody, or they attack my children and hurt my children because of what I've done. You see what I'm saying? So he truly doesn't love you, American voters, the ones that voted for him. He don't love you. And a lot of you guys were poor, and I don't want to call you poor, but middle class or less Caucasian whites. And there's a lot of black people that voted for him too, which is just as stupid. But I'm talking about the whites out there that voted for him thinking that he really had your priorities on the list first. He had y'all because of you're listening to his speech. You're looking at the actions of him. He's the same color as you guys. He's saying a lot of the same things that you guys agree with. But at the same time, he's not only destroying black and brown people's lives, he's destroying the white people's lives as well. Everybody is being affected by this guy's decisions. If this country ends up in a war, you think just because you're white, they're not going to come and drop a bomb on your neighborhood, that they're going to go to the projects and they're going to go to the black areas and brown areas first? They don't care what color you is. A bomb ain't got no race, don't have a race preference. It don't say on the side of it for blacks only. You understand what I'm saying? But this is what y'all chose. This is what y'all wanted. And so this is what you guys are getting. And that goes for the black people as well. Because there was a lot of blacks that don't actually have the people that are working hard for a living. They don't have their best intentions in mind. They don't think about those people. You know, you have these ones that see a rich white man and they want to be like him. They want to be rich. They don't care about nothing else. It's just about the status that this person has. Not realizing his status is not going to make your status any better than what it was before he was president. But yet y'all voted for him for that reason. He passed out a few little checks the first time he was in office. And so that got a lot of black and brown people on board to vote for him as well, which is stupidity. Have you ever seen and heard in times where these these freaks of nature, so to speak, will give a child $1, $2 and say, hey, come with me. That's what your president knows. You understand what I'm saying? It's that same concept, y'all. Stop being stupid. Stop being influenced by money. Because how many times have someone been bought? I remember one time, and this is me personally, when I was in high school, in which I don't think it can come back on me now. But when I was in high school, I went to go see one of my friends one time, to go cop something from him, if you understand what I'm saying. And so, I lived in a rough area, rough neighborhood, so you had drug houses and stuff like that in the hood. So the guy was running a drug house. He come to me, say, man, I give you $200-$300, man, if you go down to the police station and say this for me and say that for me and say it was you, so that, because you still, quote unquote, young and underage in a sense, which I wasn't, but I was, I'm seeing the money. I'm thinking about the $200-$300 that I'm going to get, because at the point in time, I ain't had but $5 or $10 to my name. And so I took the bait and did what was asked of me, which I put my freedom on the line for $200 or $300. I put everything that I had worked hard for, because I played sports and stuff, on the line for $200 or $300. And I say that because that's what Donald Trump is doing to the people. Use sense, y'all. Stop being that teenage-minded person and start thinking like adults. Start thinking like and acting like adults. Because he's dangling that carrot. I'm going to give them $1,500 and they going to be satisfied. And them same people getting them $1,500 and satisfied ain't got no health care. Can't afford health care because now Obamacare is gone. But yet, they thinking about that $1,500. That $1,500 is going to last you, if you're lucky, for a week or two. But if you had health care, that's something that lasts you for 12 months every year. Every year that health care is good for you, because you never know who's going to get sick and when you're going to get sick and when you're going to need it. Because you could not have health care and visit the doctor one time and it costs you $1,500. You see what I'm saying? So we have to stop thinking inside of that box and get out of that box and start thinking for ourselves and looking at the grand scheme of things. Because I made a video a couple of days ago where I did the math. If the American people were truly, the working American people, including myself because I work, was paying for Obamacare, it would truly only cost us $1.05 a year, each person, to make sure that hundreds of thousands of other Americans were able to have health care. It would cost me $1.05 a year. And I'm far from being that darn selfish and greedy to where I will gladly give $1.05 a year to help someone out that's going to last them an entire year and then some, so that they can afford their pills. They can afford that medication that they need, because you know how these drug companies do. And once again, who did Donald Trump and jump in bed with, or the drug company Pfizer jumped in bed with Trump? Come on, y'all. They're trying to create this one world government. They're trying to create that system that the Bible spoke about, which is that beast system. So now we see you have the government taking over healthcare. It's obvious that's what they're doing, taking over healthcare. And then he, like I spoke about earlier, Brad, about that big, beautiful bill, which cut out so many resources for the needy out here. And this, what I'm saying, might not necessarily be for the rich, because like once some people get to a certain point in life, they don't think about the ones beneath them, because they feel like, well, I made it, so can you. I did it, so can you. No, everybody don't have the same resources that you may have in order to get to where you have gotten to. Point blank, period. And you have to understand that, rich people. Just because you made it don't mean that everybody else is going to make it. And if you can't see that fact, then once again, you're blinded by your ignorance. You're blinded by that greed that you've had for years and years, to the point where you no longer even see the needy anymore. You walk right past somebody that's only asking you for $5, and you sitting there with $50,000 in your suitcase, and you can't even get that person $5 to go and get them a hot coffee. because you don't even see them anymore. They speaking to you and you don't even hear them because that greed has completely clouded your senses. And that's where we are. And we see it, y'all. It's not a white thing. It's not a black thing. It's a people thing. To where a lot of people have completely forgotten about the where they have come from, in a sense. Because a lot of these people that have made it, especially in my race class, the brown and black people, majority of them that have made it, a lot of them came from the bottom. They know what it means to have to be in the projects. They know what it means to be in the hood where you having gunshots put you to sleep. The sound of gunshots is what you go to sleep at night. It ain't a lullaby. It's the sound of people shooting. That's where I come from. That's where a lot of people come from. And they forget about that. And don't get me wrong, I don't help everybody that asks me for help because I can't. And the rich can't do it either. But I'm gonna tell you something. There's been times where I've gotten a tip from somebody. Somebody gave me $5, $10 for my birthday, $20 for my birthday. Even though I really don't have it. And I break that 20, I get something at the store or something, now I got a few dollars, and somebody asks me for something, guess what? I'm willing to give it to them because I have it. I have $15 in my pocket, and I'm willing to give you 5 of my $15 because that's all I have. Because I know that by me walking away from the ones that are in need, when I'm in need, people may walk away from me. So we have to stop being greedy. We have to stop being ignorant to reality. And we have to stop listening to these ones out here that truly are out of touch with reality. That they're only using their space and their speech in order to manipulate you, in order to fool you into thinking a certain way and not to see the truth that's before you. And that's what's in the White House right now, y'all. And so I say all this, man, because it breaks my heart. It hurts me. It's difficult for me to even listen to that guy when he speaks because I know where he's speaking from. And I know that he is not good for anyone but for himself and for the ones that have been fooled. The ones, though, and not saying that we're at this point now, but he's the people that support him are the type of people that's going to get the chip, or they're going to get the mark of the beast in their forehead or on their hand or wherever else in order to be able to live day to day. Those are the type of people that support Donald Trump. And I refuse. Even though I might not be able to go to the grocery store because I ain't got the mark. Even though I may be hurt and harmed because I didn't get that mark. But I'd rather that than to burn in hell with someone just because I was able to go and buy a bag of chips and a soda from the store. I go without that bag of chips and soda if that means spending eternity in heaven. But then once again, you got a lot of people that don't even believe that. They don't believe in heaven or hell. They believe in what they see. They believe in reincarnation and all this other stuff. And I'm not saying that there's not a possibility that people die and they come back, but you're not finna come back as no lion. You're not finna come back as a tiger and a bear. You get what I'm saying? If you was a person when you died, that's the way you're going to come back is as a person. You get what I'm saying? But all these ideas and beliefs that's been put in people's heads, it's ridiculous. You got atheists out here that don't even believe that there's a God. They don't even believe it's a God, in which they had their reasons for why they don't believe there's not a God. But at the same time, in my mind, if I just sit back and I look up at the moon, I know the moon didn't make itself. If I sit back and I see the stars and the sun, I know that didn't make itself. And I'd be darned if a Big Bang did it. And if it was a Big Bang that did it, it was a Big Bang that was caused by God. So it was always God, no matter if you want to claim a Big Bang or not. God did it. But one day, everybody's going to face that reality. And we're going to have to take account for all the things that we've done. And I haven't lived a perfect life. I haven't. But I've, for the most part, always considered other people's feelings, y'all. I truly have. That's how I'm built. You see what I'm saying? I've always considered other people's feelings. And sometimes some may say that that's a weakness. But I'd rather have that type of weakness than to be so cold-hearted to where I don't even think about others when I'm doing something. But in most things that I do, I think about the next person. You know, it's been times, where I have a girl and you know how we was, trying to get with him and stuff like that. And she say, no, I don't want to. Well, I'm going to leave her alone. You don't want to, baby? I don't either. Because you know what? There's 20 other girls that stay in this neighborhood, or 20 other girls that I can go and talk to. And I'm not saying that that's right, but I'm just saying. But you have others, they don't know what the word no means. They go and take what they want. And guess who you got in the White House? A person that takes what they want. And once again, y'all, we got to look at what he has given us. And I'm about to get off here. But that one interview that he did, he was on a van or a bus or something, and the guy asked him something. He said, you grab them by their private area. And people was laughing about that, y'all. They thought it was funny. They're making jokes about a 60-year-old man talking about grabbing a woman by her private area. And they thought it was memes everywhere. People doing jokes on television about this crap. I go to work, people joking about it, thinking it's funny. Y'all, that's how ignorant we have become as a society, to think that by grabbing a woman by her vagina, that's funny. Because if you're grabbing a woman by her vagina, 9 times out of 10, she didn't ask you to do it. She didn't. Because think about the time that you've grabbed a girl on her butt, or you slapped a girl on her butt. She didn't say, hey, can you make sure you grab my butt? In most cases. You have it sometime, but most cases. I remember when I was little and I slapped a girl on her butt, she most definitely didn't ask me to do it. And I almost got myself kicked out of elementary school for doing something stupid like that. But guess what? After I did it that one time, I didn't do it again. But this guy, I said elementary school. I was a child. This guy was 60 years old, still talking about grabbing a woman by her vagina. And that's what him and Epstein and all those other perverted people, whether it was Clinton, whoever else, they all did that. But because Donald J. Trump, you're the president right now, you are the one that should relinquish your position and go sit down somewhere, because you are not fit to run a country. You were not ever fit to run a country. You could barely run your businesses with all that cheap material. I mean, they done did documentaries talking about your hotels was built with cheap material that look expensive. And then you turn around and charge people hundreds of thousands of dollars to stay in your hotel, and it's constructed from cheap material. That's the type of president that we're dealing with, y'all. He gives us cheap material and he charges us a premium for something that ain't worth it. And that's what he's doing. But hey, y'all take it easy out there. I hope y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. I hope your week goes well, and Happy New Year to everyone that's out there. And, keep God first. I try to listen to the word. I try to study the word as much as possible, because without Jesus, without God, y'all, we are nothing. We are nothing. And it's the truth, because Jesus is real. Even the ones that can call themselves atheists at some point in time has called upon the name of Jesus. You ever been in a situation, not like something to get off of here, but you ever been in a situation and oh, Jesus. Well, why you calling on Jesus if he ain't real? Why would you call on Jesus if he ain't real? People, if you be out there in a big dog, oh God, oh Lord. God is Lord. Jesus was King of Kings and Lord of Lords, still is. So you once again, we have to start thinking before we go and say something. Because everybody out here, I guarantee you, just about however million, billion, trillion people on this earth, at some point in time is called upon Jesus, God, and Lord. But hey, y'all take it easy out there. And like I said, I'll talk to you soon.